Guten Tag, hier ist der Nachtanwalt, and welcome back to my channel. So this video is gonna be the first video of a series of videos about Book 2, Chapter 1, or Act 7, the first chapter, where I will show my gameplay, how I completed and finally explored it, as well as I want to try to give some helpful advice for you guys if you are still having to complete or explore it, show you all the ways, the path, and the boss fights. So as the first thing, I chose my team, and going into the first quest, I will do the path on the left side, starting with Nebula. She has Masochism and Power Focus 2, and it's a pretty good path, I would say, for just getting to know Act 7, starting off with the first quest, because it's a really simple path. Like I said, it has Masochism and Power Focus 2, which means if you apply a debuff on the opponent, the debuff will automatically be shrugged off and they heal for 5%, and Power Focus 2 means that they will get to their SP2 pretty fast, but then won't get a lot of power, so you can pretty much hit them as many times as you want without them getting to a special 3. Masochism, you just always be aware of it triggering when you parry, because parry is a debuff, so you can't rely on that parry, but otherwise, just usually bait the SP2, or if the opponent has a bad SP2, you just got to try to bait the SP1 all the time, but then you have to bait specials all the time, which is not that great. But the good thing on that path is that none of the SP2s of the opponent are that difficult to dodge or evade, except maybe the Leptron drone or Ultron from Labyrinth of Legends. His SP2 can be quite annoying, but he's the only guy with a SP2 that will give you some block damage. So first, for this guide, I won't be talking about every fight. I will especially talk about the path and about the final bosses, but I will just play some music while you guys can just watch the fights, so you don't have to listen to me for about 1.5 hours. And with that being said, I will be back for the boss fight. So now we will come to the first boss, the boss of 7.1.1, and the boss is Black Widow Clairvoyant. But first, there's a nice feature, select a bonus. You can either swap a champ, he needs to be alive, which means he needs to have at least 1 HP, and you will swap him for a champ that has or that will have full HP, which is awesome. It's a nice feature, or just a joke feature. You can select as well where nothing happens but you don't choose another champ. So the first boss has Footloose, which means after activating a special they become unstoppable and have a chance to evade for 7 seconds. Also, their special attacks are unblockable and Prey of the Weak. If a buff is nullified or expired, they gain 5% of their max power. But the only thing you really have to be aware of is Footloose. So if Black Widow does throw a special, she becomes unstoppable, and I mean, I could parry her and attack, but if the parries fall off, she still has a pretty high chance to evade. And these bosses are really stacked, which means you really don't want to get hit by them. For me personally, I thought about Human Torch as a counter for her, because Human Torch is just the Mystic Slayer, and you see that in this fight I swapped him in, activated his pre-fight ability, and Black Widow Clairvoyant is just melting. But you can basically do this fight with everyone. You just need to be aware of Footloose and that her specials are unblockable. That's why I always try to push her to her SP2, because it's way easier to evade. But like I said, you can basically do it with everyone. Also pretty good should be She-Hulk, because she can stop the Unstoppable or Captain America Infinity War, or everyone with a slow debuff. So yeah, that was the first boss fight and map. It was a good start, I think. The path is really manageable and should be doable without too big of an issue. For the next pass, I will change my team up a little bit. I will bring in Magneto for the end boss, and for the path I will also bring Dr. Doom. So on the second map, I will go to the right side and take the path down, starting with Red Skull, and the notes he has, or the whole way have, is first special delivery, which means you have 15 hits, and in those 15 hits you have to do a special attack, otherwise you will get a degen equal to 100% of the defender's attack rating over 4 seconds, which can be a little tricky for Corvus, because you could be able to get to your SP2, but that is pretty difficult, because you have to take a lot hits on the block or get hit to get more power without hitting the opponent. So yeah, you see me trying to do that there, because I want to get to my SP2, but then I thought, the degen is not that bad, I really want to get off my SP2, So yeah, I just threw it. There, tried to evade his SP2, did not work all the time. But yeah, I just left play in the background and tell you about the other nodes. So it's also Mixmaster, which means if you do the same basic attack twice in a row, the defender will evade your next attack, which means you have to alternate your combos. And for Corvus, that's actually pretty good, because the most effective way to do damage with Corvus is just medium, light, medium anyway. So doing that, I will never trigger Mixmaster. Also, I could have brought in Proxima Midnight. Then I could have just done normal combos, because if you have True Strike, the opponent can't evade, which would come in handy here. But because of special delivery, it wouldn't have been worth it for me. Also, the node has Cosmic Avalanche, which means whenever Cosmic attackers activate special attack, they gain a 40% Fury buff for the duration of the special attack, for each unique debuff on them. For each unique buff, on them. And that's awesome, because Corvus gets those cruelty buffs, which already increase his damage, and through that node he gets even more damage off while doing his especially SP2. Also, a really important thing in chapter 1 is that 6-star champs are already buffed. So you see the Fury buff sign, the passive Fury buff sign under Corvus. That's a pretty pretty overpowered node in the whole chapter, I would say. It's called Star Power. 6-star attackers gain a permanent passive Fury, increasing attack rating by 700. And that just makes the fight even faster with Corvus. So yeah, but that's basically everything you need to know about the pass. Nothing too special here as well. Just gotta be aware of Mixmaster and special delivery. Another great champ, for example, would be Quake. She can just bypass all the nodes, or champs with True Strike. Like I said, I could have brought in Proxima, then bring the defender to evade, knock him down and get the True Strike mission. But because of special delivery, it's not really worth it. So yeah, that's the things you need to keep in mind doing that pass. So yeah, I will be back for the boss fight. come to the second boss fight. Because I already brought Magneto and I will use him for the end boss, I just skipped the node where I could have swapped in a different champ. Like I said, it's useful, but yeah, you don't always need it. So the Green Goblin has redlining, which means when you have more than, or if you have 33% of your max power, you will gain a power gain passive, which raises your combat power rate by 100%, which is nice, so you get more power. But if you have 75% of your max power, you are immediately power drained to 0. And you will see me in this fight for the first, I don't know, minute or so, forgetting about that node and getting power drained, and didn't really understand why. But then I remember and it gets better. But yeah, also it has power reserve, which means that special attacks for both champions cost 50% less power, which is okay, can be good. In this matchup it can be bad, because there's also the cramping node, which means while under the effect of a weakness debuff, 10% of the attacker's power is drained every second, and additionally they suffer 25% of the defender's attack as damage each time they land a hit. And that means that in no way you should get hit by Green Goblin's SB1, because he can put a weakness debuff on you. So you gotta be wary of that node, and if it happens, just don't hit them. Also, it has debilitate, which means that the debuff effects last 100% longer. But Magneto is a great counter for that fight, because Green Goblin is metal, so he will never heal. Also, I reduced his ability accuracy, and yeah, Magneto is just doing a lot of damage. So when I finally understood or remembered the node, I just started throwing my SB2s. The fight is already going for a pretty long time, but that's okay. Magneto has just become a tank. There I did my SB2, did good damage. Now I gotta build up my prowesses again. And yeah, if you can evade Green Goblin's SB2, that's good. But if you can't and you have Magneto, it's not that bad either, because he has a really high perfect block chance. So yeah, you won't take that much block damage, what you would usually take if you block Green Goblin's SB2. But yeah, you see me just doing a lot of heavy attacks to get my prowesses up, and always try to do my SB2. If it crits, it does a lot of damage, but even if it doesn't, it does pretty substantial damage to him. So now you see I'm almost at 75% health, so I drop my SB2, just get my prowess up again. Now I have to evade another SB2 of him. Yeah, power reserve it will just prolong the fight, let's just say it that way, because he will be able to throw way more special 1s and 2s. But yeah, it's not too bad, it just takes longer. And also with Magneto you can even charge your heavy if he's not parry stunned or anything, because you are unstoppable until he hits you, and then you can just parry or evade. But yeah, like you can see, it wasn't the best fight by myself, but we still managed to get the one shot, because yeah, Magneto is just a great counter for this fight. So yeah, that was the end boss of map 2, and that means we will come to map 3 now. So map 3, like all the other maps as well, has 3 bosses, and in this video, in this completion guide, I thought I would be going up against Red Hulk, but I actually ended up going against Hulkbuster. Yeah, if you start the map, just make sure that you check which boss is on your path, because it's something totally different compared to all the other acts before. But yeah, like you see there on the picture, it showed me Red Hulk, so I automatically assumed I would be fighting Red Hulk. But I, like I said, ended up fighting Hulkbuster. So for the pass I will take, I'll switch up my team a little bit. I'll bring Proxima Midnight, so I have True Strike for Corvus, and also I will be bringing Archangel. Everyone could basically do the whole path with Corvus, it's not too bad. But I brought Archangel in for some fun. He's also really good for that path, and I will tell you why in a sec. But I brought him especially because there is an Elsa Bloodstone on the path, and yeah, he's just being a mutant champ. He's just really good against Elsa. Because he will put a bleed on her, but because he's a mutant, he won't be getting the degen from Elsa. So on this map I took the path going up, the highest path, if you will say so, starting off with Star-Lord, and the nodes are Mesmerize, Dizzy, and Stun Vulnerability. And Mesmerize can be a tricky node, because the defender has a chance to evade your attack. It's a small chance, but you know, with chances in MCOC, they are usually higher than it says. So the chance is 7% for the defender to evade your attacks and leave you stunned for a sec. But if you have True Strike or a slow debuff on the opponent can't evade. And like you saw, I haven't had True Strike yet. I needed him to evade once, then I'll knock him down. And now, because I have Proxima Midnight with me, I have True Strike, and now no opponent will be able to evade my attacks. And like I said, Corvus is really, really good, especially with suicides for that pass. But also every champ that is able to use a slow debuff, so the opponents can't evade, is good for that path. Also, it has Dizzy, so when the defender evades your attack, he will inflict a disoriented debuff on you, which will reduce your ability accuracy by 20% and also your block proficiency by 50% for 12 seconds. So gotta keep that in mind. You are not only being evaded and getting stunned, but also your block proficiency is heavily reduced and your defensive ability accuracy as well. But the good thing, and that's one of the great things about Chapter 1, is that every path has challenging nodes, but also nodes that will benefit you. And on this path, the node that will benefit you is Stun Vulnerability, which means while the defender is stunned, he is taking 200% more damage when you land an attack, which is just awesome. Especially, I'm sorry that I repeat myself, but especially for Corvus, because you will parry, do your SB2, and yeah, at least because it's the normal parry duration, no limber involved on a defender, at least the 2 first hits of his special 2 are doing double damage, so the fights are even faster. But yeah, that's everything you need to know for that path. I will just let you watch the fights, and I will be back for the boss. See you. So now we will be coming to the end boss of this path. It's, like I said, Hulkbuster, but first you can, like in the path before, choose if you wanna skip the node or swap in a different gem. But yeah, to the boss, he has Hit Me, I Dare You, which means if you struck him 10 times, he will get an armor buff. Also, he has spiked armor, which means when you struck him by a critical hit, it increases his physical resistance, and also 6% of the damage is dealt back to you as physical damage. Also, the benefiting node is shockingly brilliant. Any champion inflicted with a shock debuff lands guaranteed critical hits for the duration of the shock debuff, and also Dolt, crit chance is reduced by 50% for each buff active on you and debuff active on your opponent. So yeah, it's basically a pretty stacked Hulkbuster, and my MVP for this fight is clearly Corvus, cause Dolt doesn't matter for him, his crits are guaranteed anyway, or nonetheless, cause Dolt win if you use a different champ. But yeah, nothing really to worry, you see there. Just also because Hulkbuster is an Avenger, I had 30 charges to begin with, and then it's basically SP2, 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 and he's dead. So yeah, it's a pretty easy fight. You could also probably use Magneto pretty well. And yeah, basically every champ you usually use to fight a Hulkbuster, just be aware of the shock, which will do a lot of damage, and also of Dolt. So champs with a lot of buffs are not that great against him. But yeah, now we'll come to the fourth map. I changed up my team again a little bit and brought Doom back, because the path I will take is the colorblind path, and that's a really easy path. So the only thing you really have to keep in mind is, because of colorblind, if you have champions of the same class in your team, you will degenerate 25% health in the beginning of every fight. So just make sure that you have champions from 5 different classes on your team. Also, it's brute force, which can be annoying if the defender is stingy, because after 6 seconds you will start degenerating a lot of health. So yeah, just gotta stay aggressive. But apart from that, it's just some stacked opponents, I would say. But yeah, if you bring different champs and if you play aggressive, there's nothing really to worry for you on that path. So yeah, I just let you watch the fights, and I will be back for the boss. So now we come to the next boss, which is Hela. But first, like on the maps before, you can either swap a different champ in or not. And for Hela, she's also a pretty easy boss because she has the node, which means that both champions' attacks are increased by 500% when using a heavy attack, which is, and you will see that in that fight, especially awesome for Dr. Doom. He can end a combo with a heavy, which means he will do a lot of damage. Also, she has Lazarus, which means that she begins the fight with 5 revival charges, which heal her for 20% of her max health whenever she would be knocked out. But you can reduce that via every 20 hits on your combo, then you will remove one of these charges. And also it has Rust and Rain. When the defender is struck, he has a 40% chance to inflict an armor break on you, reducing your armor rating by 25% over 10 seconds. And if you have over 5 of these armor breaks active on you, they are consumed and turned into an indefinite armor break debuff. But yeah, that's actually not too bad. So, yeah, like you can see, I did kind of a lot of mistakes, but it's not too bad because Doom's a tank. And yeah. But yeah, the most important thing about that fight is that you should not get hit by her heavy attack because it will do a lot of damage. And you should try to use your heavy attack because it will do a lot of damage. And yeah, just via the new normal fight, if you build up your combo for every 20 hits, you will remove one of these Lazarus charges, which will disable that node basically. But yeah, was kind of a sloppy fight by me, but still managed to get her down. And that means that we are already entering the 5th map now. So for the 5th map, it will have 3 bosses as well, like all the other maps before. And after doing it 100%, I realized that the path I took for the first time was definitely not the easiest path. But I will talk about that more in detail in my exploration video for 7.1.5. But nonetheless, for this map, it has 2 pretty difficult bosses, which I will be talking in detail about in the exploration as well. But for completion, the path wasn't the easiest one, but the boss was definitely the easiest one. And I will come to the boss after the path. But now, first for the path I took, it has unlimited power and starts with Terex. And unlimited power means for each debuff the defender has suffered since the start of the fight, every 10 seconds they activate a permanent fury buff, increasing their attack by 25%. And if these fury buffs are nullified or removed in any way, the defender gains 15% of their max power for each buff nullified. And yeah, that that can become a big problem. Also, it has buffet, only 5% buffet, which is good because buffet is usually pretty annoying. Yeah, and also it has Mystic Ward, which means that your nullify effects have a chance from 95% to fail. And this is compared with Mystic Curse. Whenever a Mystic attacker activates a special attack, they poison the defender, dealing 100% of their attack rating as direct damage over 7 seconds. And the potency of the poison is increased by 40% for every buff on the defender. Which is, like I said before, the corresponding good or beneficial node for you. But, like I said, after doing all the path and after seeing a couple other people do it, I realized and heard that Ronan is the go-to guy if you want to, because like I said, for every debuff the defender suffered since beginning of the fight, he will gain a permanent, and that's the important thing, a permanent fury buff. And with Ronan, if you have a Ronan and he is awakened, he will stun the opponent with his specials, and for every buff on the opponent, the stun duration gets longer and longer, which means yeah, you can cheese it if you just parry the opponent a couple times, and the parry is a debuff, so for every parry they gain a fury buff, and for every fury buff your stun duration is extended. Only thing for sure you gotta be aware of is not using suicides if you want to cheese it with Ronan, because yeah, the recoil damage will finally take you out, because the opponents do have a lot of health. Like you see in this fight, for example, Civil Warrior, he has a power index of 70,000 and a lot of health, so yeah, just gotta know that. Also, there's Groot on the path, and Groot has the ability to shrug off debuffs way faster, so it could be difficult in the beginning to get a decently long stun duration on him, so that you can just cycle your SB1s with Ronan. And also there's Infinity Man on the path, and yeah, you gotta be careful for the last 15% of his health, because he will get those armor up buffs, and I'm not actually sure, he usually auto blocks you then if Ronan can counter that. So anyway, for that path, it's always a good decision in my opinion to bring Corvus basically for everything. If you have a Corvus, and a 5-star Corvus is totally enough, and he would be great for that Infinity Iron Man, or you can just use Magneto as well, because Buffet is becoming a problem, and with Corvus you won't be having any charges, so it could be a really long fight, but with Magneto he will disable that, which make it a lot easier. But yeah, I would just let the game play, and I will be back for the boss. So now we come to the fifth boss, which is Night Carnage. Night Carnage is a mix-up or a combination by Carnage and Nightcrawler, which means he has Nightcrawler's animations as well as his very annoying evade mechanic. And the nodes are energy, adoption, lightning, which means that Defender has a chance, if he hits you or even only hits your block, to inflict you with a shock debuff. But this shock won't trigger if you are suffering from poison. So if you run half suicides or full suicides, you won't be getting that shock. But there's also heal reversal, which means both regeneration abilities are reversed, so it's not really recommended to use suicides and rather take the shock damage if you're not using a poison immune champ, because heal reversal with suicides is just not a good idea. I did it anyway because I didn't really plan before that fight. I was just going in and seeing what's coming there. Also, it has power build-up. When the Defender reaches 2 bars of power, they gain an indefinite prowess buff every 2 seconds, which increases their special attack damage by 100%. And if they have 10 prowess buffs and they activate a special attack, it's unblockable. And also there is poison vulnerability, which means that if you inflict the poison on the Defender, it's pretty nice because it will do double damage. So yeah, and also for energy, adoption, lightning, the Defender also takes 100% reduced damage from shock effects and gains a regeneration buff, healing 1% of max health per second until the shock expires. So every champ that is doing shock damage or better shock debuffs is not that good. So for example, Doom is not the best against that fight. But I got absolutely muled with Cap Marvel. She's not bad for that fight if you play it smarter and are not using suicides. But yeah, it's just a fight where I'm not sure if there's the perfect matchup, but you will see now my finishing attempt, which was with Nick Fury. It's going pretty well. He has a second life. He's doing a lot of bleed damage. Yeah, the problem is that you will get a lot of shock debuffs on you. So yeah, that can become a problem. But basically, it's a pretty stacked Nightcrawler that you have to fight, and if you try to only hit him while he's parried, or if you have True Strike, the fight shouldn't be too bad. Just make sure that you think about the shock damage that you will be taking, and also the heal reversal. So willpower is a no-go, or you have to be willing to use some items to get through it. But for example, Quake should be a really good option without suicides, because you don't have to hit the opponent, or any shock immune champ, and especially, like I said, without suicides. But yeah, that was the fifth boss. Now we come to the final map, 7.1.6. And for that map, I will be bringing Corvus for sure, as well as Human Torch. Proxima was actually not needed, but yeah, forgot to swap her out. So yeah, I will go through the middle, ending with Spider Witch, but then going to the left side. The path is also pretty simple. It has Footloose, which means after the opponent activates a special attack, they become unstoppable and have a 25% chance to evade an attack. Oh yeah, that's why I thought I brought Proxima for no reason, but actually now I know that I brought her for the True Strike mission, which is awesome because after throwing a special, like I said, they become unstoppable and have a chance to evade, but they can't evade, but they are unstoppable nonetheless. So every champ with a slow mechanic like She-Hulk or Spider-Gwen or Red Guardian are great for this pass. Also, it has Transducer, which means you will get more power while striking, but if you stay close to the defender, you will get power drained. And also, it's probably one of my favorite notes in the game, it has stun vulnerability, which means like in the Hulkbuster quest, if the defender is stunned, you're doing 200% of your normal damage, which is pretty awesome. But yeah, the only thing you really have to keep in mind for that path is Footloose, so either bring a champ with a slow debuff, or just be aware that after them throwing a special, they become unstoppable for 7 seconds and also have a chance to evade. Yeah. And stun vulnerability, like I said, is pretty helpful in every time it is applied, but especially here, because it means when you stun the opponent and then do a special attack, the special attack is just doing double damage, which seriously decreases the fight time. But yeah, that's basically it for the path, and I will be back for the final end boss of Chapter 1. So now we will be coming to the last boss fight for this completion video, and first I can select a bonus again, swap a champ or just skip it. Yeah, thought why not bring in Doom. He's just awesome, and yeah, why not. So the boss is Spider Witch, which means Spider Gwen with Scarlet Witch, and the notes are Backblast, so the attacker's critical damage is doubled. However, if damage from a critical hit exceeds 5% of the defender's max health, or the defender lands 4 or more guaranteed crits throughout the fight, the attacker suffers from an Incinerate debuff. And that can be pretty high. It's the same note as in Act 6.2.2, the Sinister map. Also, Staggering Beauty. While close to the defender, the attacker gains a stagger debuff every 3 seconds, which is nullifying their next buff. So staying away from defender causes these staggers to gradually fall off, and that's pretty useful. Yeah, and also it has special Chaos Inversion, which means that your dash and dodge controls are inverted from the start of the defender's special attack until it ends. Also, it has the same extra notes as Night Carnage, which was Power Buildup and Power Overflow. So if the defender has 2 bars of power or more, they gain indefinite prowess buffs every 2 seconds. And that can be a problem here because the special attacks are inverted, and if they have above 10 prowess buffs, you can't block the attacks, the special attacks, because they become unblockable. But yeah, I think a smart thing would be to bring an Incinerate immune champ. That would be helpful, but it's also not needed in any way, I would say. For me, Doom worked pretty good. Wasn't the best gameplay by myself, but Doom is just a tank, which means I could take basically all of the attacks on the block. But because it's also Spider Gwen, means that you have to deal with her evade mechanic. But there's no limber on this node, so you can basically parry and only hit her while she's stunned. Or you could also use a slow champ, like for Night Carnage, for example, Red Guardian, or Spider Gwen as well, or She-Hulk, or any other slow champ. Yeah, and for that's basically it. You see there, I finished her with Nick Fury. He is a decent counter as well. If he has, I think it's over 5 tactical charges, the opponent can't evade. But yeah, the most important thing for this fight is to have some kind of slow debuff attached to the opponent, or only hit them while they're stunned. But yeah, that was the final boss for Chapter 1, and that means we will now come to an end of my completion guide gameplay video. I'm still new, so I hope it was still helpful for you. I will do these videos for, I probably do it for all of Act 7, but now starting with the exploration guides where I can talk more in detail after doing all path. Yeah. But now there was an offer which contained new fancy health potions, level 6 health potions and team potions, and a 15% class 5cc selector. It's really not a good deal. It's overpriced for 3,500 units, but at this point, or at that time, I wanted to rank up Warlock to rank 3, so I went for it and took tech. But yeah, that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope it was helpful to you, and I will see you guys on my next video and on the exploration of 7.1. Goodbye.